arimashita about the pronunciations of and So if you're asked a question that's casual, like taberu, and you want to say yes instead of hai taberu, you could say taberu. So it doesn't even sound like it's spelled exactly. It's almost just like the letter with nothing else. You know, They spell it as here, but I've never heard it pronounced like that. It's always
Did you turn?
Aware it had a
Yes,
spelling.
yeah.
Double but it's spelled
Yeah,
like
and then and then I've never seen them spelled this way except in this book. I think these are odd spellings, but usually they're just. I've seen it spelled with just the and two of them for Yeah, which is you got to get that up and down action with the tone of voice to get the no. So, like, let's say somebody's offering you natto, and you despise natto. You can say, they say taberu, and you say tabenai.
Well, we have like the same thing in English.
Yeah.
No thanks.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Okay. Yeah. So that's how they sound. Does that help? Right. Okay. Other shitsumon. Shitsumon ga arimasu ka? 他に質問がありますか? So the pronunciation about day after tomorrow is also a question. Asatte. Asatte. It's got a small tsu in it, not because of being any kind of te form or anything like that. It's not. It's just that's the word. Just like ashita is not a past tense word just because it ends in shita. It's actually tomorrow. The opposite of past tense. Okay, so ashita, asatte. Yeah. This is an example of a place where Japanese has a single word for something that we have a phrase for. So, hi.
One of our vocabulary is homestay. We learned that earlier. And homestay and living with a local family. So that's like you're a foreign exchange student and they're okay.
Yeah, so homestay is what they call it when you, for example, go to Japan and you're living with a family named Hashimoto and you're calling them mom and dad and brother and sister, but they're not your real family, they're just the family you're living with when you live in Japan. Okay, so that's homestay. Okay. Other questions about any of the vocab? Hi.
what does furu actually mean?
Which one?
Omega furu.
Omega furu. Furu. Yeah.
What does that actually mean?
The verb by itself.
Yeah.
Furu. To fall.
Just to fall.
Yeah.
So like rain is falling.
Yeah.
Oh,
Omega
that's cute.
furu. Yeah. Yeah. I believe
Rain
that's
is
the
falling.
kanji that's ochiru.
Can you use like yuki ga furus?
Yuki ga furu. Hi. Yeah.
So the character that represents the element or something like the part of the weather,
Yeah.
that's there, and then the gafuru, and that's meaning it is currently.
Yeah. So ame ga furu is basically saying the rain is falling. So we turn rain into a verb and say it's raining, but Japanese doesn't turn the noun rain into a verb. It just puts a verb with it. That's the difference. So if they say the rain is falling or the snow is falling, ame ga furu, yuki ga furu, like that. Hey.
Is the furu, can you use it like hon ga furu? Like my book crop.
Hon ga ochiru. Ochiru is the verb for things that drop. Hi.
Under the adverbs and other expressions, is ni tsuite? It's like, is that
Yes.
is the ni a particle or is it?
The ni is the particle, yes.
Okay.
So for example, Nihon ni tsuite shitsumon ga arimasu ka? Do you have any questions about Japan, concerning Japan? So I could say, for example, tango ni tsuite shitsumon ga arimasu ka? Any questions about the tango? Okay. Yeah. 漢字について質問がありますか Any questions about the kanji?
Um,
文法について質問がありますか Questions about the grammar.
for the kanji,
はい。
wait. Oh, I had it and it just went to the ether.
Okay. Let me know if you get it back.
Wait, yeah, here.
はい。
For the na adjectives,
はい。
skillful and clumsy.
Yes.
They're using for like the word for up and the word for bottom, but they're also
Yeah.
using the character for like hands.
Yes.
So how does that work?
Good hand for it,
They're
or bad
idiom.
hand for it.
Yeah, they're idioms. Okay, so you can't take it literally, but think about like if somebody in English you've got the idiom someone has the upper hand. It doesn't literally mean that their hand is higher than yours. It means that they're in a better position than you in some way, right? So these are the same, that they're idiomatic expressions that just happen to use above hand and below hand, but it's not meant to be taken literally. Jozu means that you're good at something. Heta means that you're bad at something, not skilled at it. So, if you wanted to say, for example, 私は日本語が下手です. I'm not good at Japanese. That's a modest thing to say. You will hear people who are really good at something say that they're heta because you're not supposed to brag about what you're good at in Japanese culture. You will rarely hear anybody claim jozu for themselves. They will describe somebody else as 料理が上手 or 日本語が上手, talking about some other person, not about themselves.
Because Japanese culture is about politeness, humility, honor.
That's what I see in the dialogue.
Is motteiku related to mutsu?
Yes, it is. Very good. I'm glad you saw that. Okay, so motteiku. I'm looking for where it is in the.
It's on the bottom,
Right
of the
before
top
the
on the
right
right
before.
page of the first paragraph. First, right page,
Right page.
Right before the revert.
right page, other right page.
Yeah.
Top.
Motteiku. Okay, yeah, I think, but okay, yeah, motteiku. Yeah, I was just looking for. Yeah, if you look at the kanji,
Yeah,
it's the same kanji, motsu.
So is it like the teimas, but
Yeah, it's the teimas form, but instead of teimas, it's teiku. And so instead of saying that you're holding it and going. Motteikimasu, to take it with you as you go.
So why isn't the ku part also kanji?
You would think that the I in iku would be kanji, and sometimes it's written that way, but for some reason they don't always write it that way
Is
sometimes.
that because you might think that they're both saying to go and to wait if they wrote it that way?
That's, yeah, it
Very
could be,
confusing.
yeah, if you put a comma in there and use the kanji, then it would be like,
It could
hold
be
it
grammatically
and then
correct.
go, instead of the compound word motteiku, which is to take it with you. So maybe that's why they don't always use kanji there. I think some older publications do put the kanji in.
Okay.
So anyway, and by extrapolation, you can take motteiku, you can also do mottekuru,
Oh.
to bring something to the place. So for example, you're here and you realize you forgot something important and you call your friend who's in the other building and say, mottekite kudasai, please bring it with you when you come here to me.
So
And mottekairu, let's say you're buying something here and you're going to take it home with you, mottekairimasu.
Motte kairimasu.
Yeah, so you can use all three traveling verbs that
So
we know
motte
with
itself
motte.
is the take,
Yeah,
and then the iku part is the
Yeah.
compound.
well, the motte part is like hold, right?
Right, right,
What
right.
you're holding and going with it, which is take, or you're holding and coming to this place, which is bring,
So the
in
compound
English,
makes it.
or holding and going home with it, which would be bring home. You can use all three. Hi.
Is the general rule of thumb for like those three you mentioned to not make the kanji for the second verb?
Yeah, that seems to be
So
the
like
general
kunu
rule of
and
thumb.
kaeru, like you
Yeah,
don't
you
use that.
put, yeah, they don't always use the kanji for the second verb, and I don't know if there's a rule to that effect, or if that's just sort of a habit that a lot of people have. I feel like I want to say that I've seen it both ways, but maybe maybe using the kanji for both verbs is kind of going out of fashion or something. I don't know.
I've heard hashi somewhere else, don't remember, but it's used
Uh-huh.
for chopsticks in here.
Yes. Hashi, bridge. Hashi, chopsticks. Hashi, edge.
Different.
Yeah, the different kanji, slightly different tonalities.
I've heard
The
that
pitch
one,
accent
yeah.
shifts.
there's like a different pitch at the end versus
Yeah.
at the beginning. Like
Yes.
hashi is like bridge
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, hashi, hashi,
Yeah.
hashi.
I read about that.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's some textbooks that actually teach the pitch accent. Unfortunately, this one doesn't show it. So I've seen books where they will either bold the part of the syllable that's supposed to be the higher pitch, or they will underline it. I've seen it done, I'll grab a pen and show you. Oh, this one right here. I've seen it done where they spell it, what is it? Normal, and
Hashi.
then they take a different
Kanji.
color or something, and they show you that to indicate that the tone starts high and goes low.
Hashi.
Hashi
Hashi.
versus hashi, which they would draw it the opposite direction, or put a straight line across if it's high pitched across for all of the syllables.
Do you know the kanji for the bridge and edge?
I tell you if I look them up. I don't.
Okay.
I don't have them memorized.
It's not
off the top of
offhand.
my head, yeah. I used to know the one that's bridge because it's part of my friend's surname, but I don't write it often enough anymore.
Thankfully, we have a rich.
For the verb to drive, it's got like the
Intensity,
so you
yeah.
go instead of like
Well, that, because it's a vocabulary word, it's not that particular word that's This one you pronounce the oo a little bit more. Untensuru is the right pronunciation. So yeah, that other pronunciation for yes and no, and that's more about those individual words rather than that spelling in general. Okay.
So, my question is on the laundry. The sen, the sen. I can identify with the part that we've learned. That's sen in like sensei or elsewhere. But why does it also use the character that looks like it's from Yobi, like day of the week?
Looks like Yobi to you?
No, the second character
Oh,
looks like the from like the Yobi.
Oh.
I wanna.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Wow.
Yeah, it's that, and then, right?
Yes. Why
Okay,
structure?
Okay, じゃあ皆さんちょっと聞いてくださいね。When we're recording and you guys are talking in the background, that the recording is going to pick that up too. So, Sentaku, he was asking why it's written like this. Does everybody remember what that radical is? That piece as a standalone?
Oh, that's water.
Yes, water, sansui. They call it sansui because it's 3 dots. And sui is another pronunciation for the kanji for water.
So 3 for water.
Yeah. Yeah, so the 3 dot water as opposed to the 2 dot version, which usually indicates ice or cold or frozen water as opposed to liquid water.
And one.
There's, well, it's not indicating water anymore if it's only a single dot. It's got other.
What if it's 4 or more?
That 4 along the bottom like that is fire.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh wait, so 4 is fire, 3 and 2 are water.
Yeah, 3 is water, 2 is ice.
Do like any more indicate something else or?
Not necessarily.
So it goes 2,
Usually
3,
you don't
4.
get more than 4 dots.
Okay, so it's 2, 3, 4 only.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
In black.
Kuroi, yeah, because
Burnt.
kogete, it's burnt, charred. Okay, so anyway, going back to sentaku, notice that the sen in sentaku, you've got the sansui for meaning, and then you've got the sen from sensei for pronunciation. It's a pronunciation clue, right? You see that? And then the taku part, you've got the sansui again, because it's still relating to water because you're washing things, right? Sentaku. You're using water to wash your clothes,
Hmm.
right? What else did Japanese people have in ancient times to wash clothes with? They didn't have dry cleaner fluid.
And they had the
They had water.
they had rivers, the rain, those things you rub against.
So, and then as far as why this looks like the yobi, the yo part of the yobi and all, I'm guessing that it may have actually been some sort of pronunciation clue at some point in history. It no longer sounds anything like that.
Maybe they did their laundry daily because the world did.
My tutor said that it was, it's supposed to be because of supposed to be a day that you did.
Oh, like a washing day.
Yeah, like,
Okay, laundry day.
Oh,
That-
Wednesday.
That makes sense, laundry day.
It's probably
Okay,
Wednesday.
What about the kanji for to clean? It looks a lot like the kai.
The return kanji.
Okay, let's see, where are we? Soji suru, that one?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, yes it does. That, right?
Yeah, she's right. It looks a lot like the kai.
Do you remember what this radical is? A hand, yes. It's a hand.
A hand.
That's exactly right.
Your hand.
Yeah.
And then-
So, and it's soji. So this pronunciation is so. So again, I don't hear any particular relationship between that and kaeru, but there could have in history been some kind of relationship, and the hand part for cleaning makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, but meaning plus pronunciation is only one possible construction for kanji. Some of them are meaning plus meaning, like you saying, you know, that the taku and santaku, both parts relate to meaning, cleaning day, right? Some kanji are a compound of two or more parts that all contribute to the meaning of the kanji. Some of them, the radical contributes to the meaning, and the other half of it is just about being a homophone with something else. And then some of them are more pictographic. They supposedly look something like what they're supposed to depict. And some are sort of a combination of any and all of those.
Is that why like Denwa uses like the character for electricity and
Yeah.
the character for speech?
Right, because electric conversation makes sense for, right, for Denwa, right? And Kaiwa is meet and speak together. Kaiwa, dialogue.
Meet as in
Meet as in meet people.
like an encounter.
Like meet face to face.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
So meet as an encounter.
Not niku.
I was thinking
Oh.
that was the question.
So you're saying meet as in the encounter between people.
Yeah, because it's kai, right? Kai from,
Yeah.
kai, and then kai from kaisha, yeah, it's the same kai from kaisha. And then it's the wa, kai, wa. So you're meeting and speaking, dialogue, conversation, kai wa. That's cool. Yeah. So, okay. Other questions? 他に質問がありますか? Okay. じゃあクイズをやりましょうか。じゃあクイズについて質問がありますか？皆さん、クイズについて質問がありますか？
Can you say the extra credit sentence?
Oh, hi. Shall we go over there? The smoking isn't allowed here, that's why. あそこに行きましょうか？ここでタバコを吸ってはいけませんから。
Okay, I got most of it.
Could you write it?
行きましょうか. I didn't think of the over there.
Could you please write
はい
it?。
きましょうか。ここで
Most of it.
Tuesday, welcome. Yes, something about words possible.
Okay. Here, okay, yeah, I have it written here, so it makes it easier. Soこにしましょうか Okay.
Is it okay with question marks?
Yeah.
Question marks.
Yeah.
It makes it easier to read.
Okay, that's okay. ここでタバコをじゃあいけませんから
Does,
And if you wrote tabako in katakana, that's okay too.
Why is it written in hiragana in the
I
first place?
think just because it's such an old word in Japanese,
Really?
that they don't think of it as being a loan word, because they probably had tobacco in Japan at least since the 1800s, if not sooner. So, you know, so a lot of the very old farm loan words in Japanese have been in the language so long they don't really think of it as a loan word anymore, so they don't necessarily keep those in katakana. You know, same thing for like zubon. Zubon means slacks, but it's, you know, not a Japanese original word, but it's been in the language a very long time. Okay, so if you wrote tabako this way, that's fine.
I didn't put the
Yeah.
asoko ni.
Okay. Well, sometimes I'll give a half point extra credit if it's pretty close, but you only get the full point extra credit if it's really correct.
It's like chickies.
Okay, so, okay, じゃあ、次は練習しましょうね。じゃあ、文法について質問がありますか？文法について質問がありますか？
Is that grammar?
はい、文法。
I have some
これ
questions.、
文法。文法わかりますか？文法。文法について質問がありますか？
Which one I know?
By the way, look at the kanji for bunpo.
Bun.
Does everybody recognize
Yeah,
the
the-
bun in bunpo?
Yeah, the character for literature, right?
Yeah, literature or words. And the po in bunpo means method. And by the way, the bun it sometimes also means
Minute?
sentences. So, no, the bun that's sentences is a different kanji.
Oh.
But this bun can mean sentences as well as words or literature. So, bunpo, sentence, methods, methodology, method of forming correct sentences, therefore grammar, bunpo.
Ding ding ding.
Is the rule of thumb for verbs that end with like it's one sound and then like like kau or au, like
Yeah.
to buy. Is it to when you're making it into a short-term negative, does it become wanai?
Yes, always. The only exception is aru, which is a complete exception because it's just nai. Okay.
How does that work? Like when it just like now a subject, particle, and then nai, right?
Okay, so let's look at a few examples. So, au, okay, it changes to awanai, right? Okay, kau would be another example, kau, kawanai,
is it
Okay.
like instead of changing to like I and kai, it's just like
Yes.
wa, ka?
Okay, think about it this way. You remember when we first talked about the fact that we call these, in this textbook, verbs? Do you remember me saying that some people call them something else? Some people call them godan verbs. Godan, okay? Go meaning go, 5, okay? Dan, anyone do martial arts?
It's it's like a stance, right?
No, dan is a level.
Oh.
Okay, so if you look at your hiragana chart, when it's drawn out the traditional way, a, I, u, e, o, ka, ki, ku, ke, ko, etc. The rows that have the same vowel sound are called dan. So adan, idan, udan,
Oh, so it's
edan,
level.
odan, odan. Okay, the columns that share a consonant or lack of one are called gyo, which is actually written with the same kanji that you know for iku, but it's pronounced gyo. Don't ask. Okay.
I think they were limited on kanji.
Chinese.
I don't know. So ayueo is the agyo, kakikukeko is the kagyo, and so forth. Okay? So agyo, kagyo, sagyo, tagyo, etc., right? And adan, idan, udan, edan, odan. Okay, so godan verbs are verbs that actually conjugate up and down their particular gyo. Okay? But ao and other verbs that end in u are a sort of weird exception because they actually conjugate wa, I, u, e, o. They act as if there were a wagyo that was full and that this wasn't a particle. Okay? That's how they act. They just pretend like wagyo is a full gyo, but they use I, U, E, O from the agyo. Does that make sense? So what do I mean by they use all 5? Well, we already know that, for example, kaimas conjugates on the I dan, right? Kau conjugates on the udan, right? Kawanai, we just learned, conjugates up here, right? And in book 2, you guys get to learn things that work down here. So, example, kao and kaeba are a couple of examples of ones that conjugate down there.
Are they all the same, like,
They're all the same
related?
root word.
oh, okay.
They're all to buy in various forms. Kawanai, to not buy. Kaimas, to buy. Kao, to buy. Kaeba, if I buy. Kao, let's buy. Yeah, this is the casual version of kaimashou. Kao. Yeah. So you can do that with all of the godan verbs, also known as u verbs. Okay, all the u verbs do this. And that's why they call them godan verbs, because they use all 5 dan in their various conjugations. And there are no other ways to conjugate
That would
udan.
make a lot more sense if they would have taught it this way in the book.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that's why godan verbs are called godan verbs, because it's not like there's any 6th way to conjugate them, right? I mean, there are other conjugations that work off of e or o, for example, besides these that I'm showing as examples. But all of them work off of one of these 5. Okay?
Taking a picture of that.
And if you're working with one that ends with something else, but it's still a godan verb, it'll just work on that column. So for example, if you're working with kiku, okay, then you've got kikimasu, kikanai, right? Kikeba, if I listen, or if I ask, and kiko, let's listen, or let's ask. Okay?
It's like one of those locks where you have to turn the dials to make the numbers.
Yeah, so it's a really nice pattern, right? It really works. So if you know your hiragana well, in your chart form, then it's very easy to figure out your conjugations now of Godan verbs. We've got all three of these covered, right? And then the other two actually don't get introduced till the Green Book, I believe. But they all exist, and if you feel like learning them ahead of time, there's all kinds of resources out there on the internet and in apps and such. Okay, so does that clarify some things?
Makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Describe it. I like that.
Okay. So, and of course, we're not working with those lower two categories yet, just because they're not introducing that stuff
Did
yet.
they explain that in the second book, like that form?
I believe they explained these, or
Well, I mean,
I
like
know
the
I
rows
know
and
they-
the columns and stuff, like the
I-
codon.
I don't know if they ever explain it exactly this way, but I just find this to be a really easy way to understand it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but one of the drawbacks of having a book that's written entirely by native speakers without any non-native speaker teachers involved is just that none of them had to learn this language as a foreign language.
I've noticed they
So-
take like a lot for granted in regards to particles and stuff.
There are some things that it just probably didn't occur to them that needed explanation.
Like the wa
Yeah.
ikimasen, it doesn't
Yeah.
explain that the wa is the particle
Right.
at all.
Yeah, I think they just expect the teacher to pick up the slack on the things that they forgot to explain.
And if somebody's learning on their own, like,
Genki is not the greatest resource for self-study of Japanese. It would be very confusing to try to self-study out of Genki.
I know that day that you were explaining that was the day we came back from Moritani,
Yeah.
and like I totally blanked on that explanation. And when we were doing the homework, I actually got it clicked that somebody said wa ikimasen, and I had to actually go Google that because the book did not explain that.
Mhm.
So when you actually said wa ikimasen on the listening comprehension, if I had not gone and looked that up, it would not have occurred to me that that is what
Right.
it was, because the book did not go through
Yeah.
that explanation.
It's just
Yeah.
part of a good learning
So
skill.
I told you all that.
Yeah.
like, right.
Okay, so anyway, and then of course the, the ru verbs, we talked about the fact that all you really have to do with ru is drop the ru and add nai, right? So negative short forms of ru verbs are easy, right? And we already knew that nai was negative in Japanese, so taberu, tabenai, easy. Suru, shinai, kuru, konai, those are living up to their name of being irregulars, right? Because they're not even consistent between the two of them anymore. At least they were consistent between the two in some of our past conjugations, like suru shite, kuru fute. No more consistency. And then aru is our big exception. It just negates as nai. Iru, imasu, inai.
Oh,
So it's normal.
okay. Just adding.
Yeah,
Okay.
just aru, it's the only exception. Everything else, even like iku was an exception with te form, but only with te form. Ikanai, it follows the same rule as other,
Ikanai means don't go, right?
right, well, to not go, yeah,
Okay.
not go.
Why-
It's not don't go as in please don't, it's just not go.
Why
Right?
konai?
Why what?
Konai?
Kunai? Because it's an irregular verb.
Instead of like kina. No idea. Just this, just this.
They just wanted to make it more confusing for gaijin.
Okay.
In the homework, when you write it as konai, and since kuru has a kanji, does it remain? The kanji stays?
Yes,
Oh.
and that is one of the interesting things about kuru, is that because, and that's part of what makes it irregular, I think, just the fact that, you know, if you write it in kanji, if you write it with the ru on the end, then you know to pronounce it kuru. If you write it with the nai, then you need to remember to pronounce it konai. If you write it with mas, you have to remember to write it, to read it kimas. So this, again, is an exception. It's irregular because most Japanese verbs, the verb part that doesn't conjugate is the part that's kanji. Now, there are multiple readings sometimes of the same kanji for different versions of the same verb. Recite.
That's okay.
So anyway, what I was saying, there are verbs where you read it one way when it's this meaning of the verb, of that kanji verb, and then there's another meaning possible for that kanji, a different version of the verb, where the kanji gets read differently. But this is one of the only ones I can think of where the same verb, the same meaning of the verb, it's not, you know, it's not even like a transitive, intransitive pair or anything, and yet the kanji gets pronounced differently for all three of these forms. Most of the others, like aku and akeru, are transitive, intransitive pair. They both use the same kanji, but it's, most of the time, it's the hiragana on the end that conjugates differently. Usually the kanji part gets left alone, at least within the conjugations for that one version of the verb.
Didn't we discuss sometime earlier that there was like a certain thing, but it was spelled the same, but in two different translations it had two different kanji?
Yeah, but that's kind of the reverse of this. Yeah, two different kanji for the same pronunciation.
Yes.
And this is three different pronunciations for the same kanji for the same meaning.
So wait, so with that one kanji, it has the same meaning but different.
Yeah, kimasu, kuru, konai. It's all the same verb. It's always to come, but mas form, dictionary form, and short negative are three different pronunciations of that kanji. So it's an oddball for many reasons, and that's one of them. Okay, that's why it's considered an irregular verb. You know, and then of course you've got, besides kimasu, you've also got kite, which is also ki. You know, and then I'm not even gonna answer what those other two categories do. I don't even remember offhand how those two work. Question?
Yeah, in our vocab, osoku naru, to be late.
Yeah, osoku naru, yeah.
Naru is like, I'm just looking it up now, but.
Yeah, naru is like to become.
So,
So osoku is being treated as an adverb, late, to become late. Osoku naru. Okay?
and
That
they
makes
have that,
sense?
they have that for like, just
There-
as many verbs as they have it for like suru, like.
There are, maybe not quite as many, but there are a number of verbs that you, or adverbs or things that you can put with naru to mean to become X. So for
How
example,
is that
jozu
conjugated?
ni naru, to become good at something. Jozu ni naru.
How do you conjugate it? Naru.
Naru, narimasu. It's a
Okay.
new verb.
Okay.
Naru, narimasu. Yeah, that's, yeah, so, ならない。遅くならないでください。Would be please don't be late. はい。
Could you draw that kanji like not
Not
so
cursive?
quickly? Yeah, not so quickly. I just want to see how.
Like like it would be typed in.
Okay. Right. Now I see how to do it now.
Yeah.
It's a double cross T with
Yeah, so in
Yeah.
terms of order, 1, 2, 3, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I thought we weren't supposed to use she when we're counting because of the whole, superstition.
No, she you don't use very often with counters, except for specific ones, like shigatsu, April. But when you're counting just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, she and yon are more interchangeable. And that's more of a personal preference thing. Some people count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and some people count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For me, she just comes more naturally because it just seems to flow, and that's also the way I learned it first. So, and it's also the one that's more commonly used when you're counting by twos. If I'm counting how many people are here by twos, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, like that. Just, it flows.
I think it flows.
Okay, so anyway, so does that answer that question for Kuru? Okay, 他に質問がありますか? I want to make sure you guys have some time to do pair practice.
I have a question that to 思います。
はい、と思います. Okay, yeah.
Particle
Yeah, it's particle to. It's kind of like you're saying you are
And.
with that thought, or and I
With.
think.
Oh.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Again, it's an idiomatic expression. You can't take it too literally, but it takes to. So, 面白いと思います. I think it's interesting. Or,
Yeah, there's a lot of homework.
Yeah.
The it was like all, I think, homework.
yeah,
And I was wondering about the like.
yeah. Yeah, and did they teach と言います also? Yeah, と言ってました. They're teaching both of them because they both use that same structure. So you can say, I think X, or you can say, so-and-so said X. And they're the same basic structure, they just take the two different verbs. と思います or と言ってました.
Also the ga.
What about the ga?
Ga in the sense of.
Oh. Yeah, you replacing wa with the ga
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're struggling with that, I try to tell people just not to stress over it too much because the wa ga stuff took me forever to get the hang
I read
of.
that it's really confusing for
It's-
people that just aren't native speakers.
It's very confusing for non-native speakers. I sometimes still don't know for sure whether I'm using it the way a native speaker would do it, but I've got a good enough handle on it that I'm pretty confident in conversation that I can just say whichever one feels right to me, but I don't have a good explanation for every little nuance of it. Some of it, I think, I feel like what really did it for me was living in Japan long enough, being exposed to native speakers long enough that I started to get a feel for it.
Is it mostly like a feel thing that you can't really explain?
Yeah, mostly. So they try to put rules to it to explain it. The problem is languages don't develop the rule first and then make the language fit. The language develops first and then they try to analyze it to figure out what kind of rule are people following.
To
But-
teach it.
Yeah, to teach it. But they're not necessarily really following a rule. They're following a custom.
Right.
It's the way the language has evolved. Maybe at some point in the past, something was very consistent, always do it like this, and then over time it changed, and so now there are exceptions to that rule because people don't really use it consistently anymore. So, you know, all of this is, you know, reverse engineered from this is how native speakers speak. Now let's see if we can figure out how to explain it to people.
Right, because kids don't necessarily.
Right. So,
One last question, relating to Nanika,
Yeah.
Nanka, like,
Nanika versus Nanimo,
I don't know
that
if anyone
stuff.
else is noticing this, but a lot of the conversation that Hitoshi and,
Yeah.
forgot his name again,
Ippei.
Ippei,
Yeah.
Ippei.
they would often say Nanka.
Nanka is
when
just
they're
slang.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nanika is more proper. Nanka is slangy. That's the difference.
Hey.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a
So,
question.
but getting back to the ga, so basically,
Oh.
what they're telling you is that, first of all, if you're asking a question with a question word like dare,
Dare?
it's gonna be ga.
Ga.
Okay? If you're answering a question like dare, you're gonna use ga in the answer, and even if you're not specifically answering a question, if you're making a statement that kind of implies you're answering that sort of question, then you still use the ga. So if it's a situation where maybe the person didn't ask you any question, but you know that the piece of information they're missing is the name of the person who did that,
New information.
then it's new, the name of the person is what's new information, not what they did. They knew that somebody went to Okinawa, they didn't know who went. So, Robato-san ga ikimashita. Robert's the one who went.
Some missing information, but not necessarily new.
Yeah, missing or new information about who
Okay.
did it,
Okay.
or what happened,
Okay.
not about whatever the verb is.
Okay.
You say, see what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
when the new information is the information relating to the topic,
Okay.
that's when wa gets replaced by ga. For this usage of ga. There are other uses
Isn't
of
it much
ga.
more complicated
Yeah.
later on?
That's why I think this book tries to break it down and just introduce
It's,
little bits of how you use wa and ga as they go along. So, you know, lesson 1 introduced wa in very limited circumstances like watashi wa gakusei desu. And then later they introduced the wa ga structure for things like watashi wa sushi ga suki desu. And now they're introducing this usage, dare ga Okinawa ni ikimashita ka? Robato-san ga ikimashita, you know, like that. So they're introducing it piecemeal on purpose, because if they give the whole thing to you all at once, you might explode.
Yeah.
Hi.
I noticed one of the words is kampai. I've heard that a lot, like when they're
Right.
doing like a celebration. But I want to know, it says cheers for a toast, but
It's actually closer to bottoms up, because the kanji
I was
are
about to
for
ask
dry
that.
glass.
I was about to ask that. The kanji reminds me of something different.
Yeah, the kanji is literally dry and glass or cup.
So
it's like
empty your cup.
Drain your glass.
Empty your cup.
Yeah. So bottoms up is a lot closer.
Bottoms up.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's kampai, and that one crosses national boundaries, because Korean and Chinese both use those same two kanji and just pronounce it their own way.
I thought the Korean had their own symbols and characters.
They do. They have a phonetic alphabet that takes the place of what hiragana and katakana do for Japanese. It's so much easier than kana, because it's a true alphabet, so there are fewer symbols to learn.
because somebody actually like sat down and was like, I'm gonna create
Yes.
this.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
efficient.
one of the emperors of Korea back in like 14 something or other decided that we need a phonetic system so that we don't have to write in pure kanji anymore. And so he just ordered some of his scholars, go create us an alphabet.
It's really efficient.
Yeah, it's a really cool alphabet, but yeah, and they tend to use only around 1,000 kanji in everyday usage. About half what Japanese uses.
Huh.
But something like
Language.
70% of their nouns are of Chinese origin. So even if they're not using the kanji for them, the pronunciation is often very similar to Chinese.
It's hard to speak Korean to learn how to write it the opposite of Japanese, I guess.
Yeah, well, Korean has more levels of politeness than Japanese, if you can believe that. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. I want you guys to have some time, and we're running out of time. So
About
if there are
10
no
minutes.
other grammar questions, let's take some time to go ahead and do pair work, starting with, let's see, Okay.
Page 201, B.
yeah, or 200C you could do also. Discuss the following topic in pairs or groups. So, okay. So, do you want to form your own groups this time?
Sure.
Okay.
Each row.
Well, I think the three of them are already in groups, so we could do another group of three and a group of four. That would be pretty easy.
3, 4, okay.
Okay, so go ahead and do some pair work activities, and I'll kind of look around and see if anybody wants help with anything.
Okay, well,
Your backpack, I don't know. I don't, no, I'm sorry, I don't want your backpack. Okay. I don't want to hit your backpack.
Yes.
I thought we were like going.
Hey, Sensei,
Hi.
I just made an artistic observation. 1, 2, 3, and then we make a square. So
Okay.
it makes the sort of makes one of the the character to say.
Okay. That's cute. Yeah. I need to stand at the very edge over here to make it not uncomfortable. There you go. Now we've got you. That's cute.
Artistic observation.
I think this makes me wonder if Japanese Sesame Street ever does kanji people the way they do alphabet letters and.
Wait, there's Sesame Street over there?
Yes.
Wow, I didn't
Yeah,
know.
Sesame Street has made it around the world.
Because they seem all set.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cute to watch some of the clips that have been translated into Japanese.
I wonder if everyone knows that all those black guys.
Oh, wait, almost. Really?
Yes, really.
Wow, the voice is so high pitched. I thought it was a woman.
It's a
Oh.
big black guy.
The voice of Helmholtz, really?
Look it up.
That's a riot.
I thought it was a woman, just pretending to be like a child.
No one knows, but it really is true.
That's cute.
Alright, so who wants to go first?
I'm gonna be a grace for now because, like, you know, he doesn't have money.
Okay. I was gonna say, that's fine. I was like, I was
Yeah, there you go, you finished it.
Okay.
Yeah.